Can I tell you a secret?
Please don't do this.
I was talking to an Avenger.
Hello and welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we are your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai.
Hello and Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year! 2023
Yes.
is here.
Yes.
Wow.
We are back.
We're back. It's been a minute. Jeff and I haven't seen each other since last year. Oh!
We've both been very...
busy.
Mm-hmm. On top of that, well, I had a 2-week break from work.
Industry boy.
Yeah, like I was like, I don't know what to do this time. It got to the point where I was like, I don't know what to do with my life.
I would legitimately forget that you were off.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, what is he doing right now?
So I literally was taking the time. I was like, I can stay home.
Yeah.
I can clean my mind and clean my house and room and just reset a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, I went hard New Year's Eve. We were just talking about this off mic. And then after that, I kind of just chilled, and then I went back to work. But then as soon as I came back to work, Dai told me Dai just got back from a New York trip.
Yeah. Thanks to HBO and The Last of Us.
So yeah, she was that. So we are pushing the limit to get this episode done.
We are. We're going to stay on schedule. We haven't missed a drop date since we started this show.
And we don't plan to, even with me leaving for 2 weeks leaving for 2 weeks in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So yes.
We're gonna stay on track.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna bring a couple of episodes to you back to back in our next session.
Yes.
But before we get into all of that, of course, again, Happy New Year. Hope you enjoyed our Marvel mashup. It was basically what we consider our blooper reel of sorts.
End of the year, like wrap up of like
super
top
fun
moments, funny moments.
Yeah. So go ahead and backtrack and check that out if you haven't yet. And of course, our last episodes of the year, I think America Chavez was our last one for 2022.
I think so.
Yeah. And
yes.
so go back and enjoy those. Some happy Patreon news for the new year. So I unfortunately did not see the notification before we recorded the last episode, speaking of. So a thank you and a welcome officially to our new patron, Eve.
Oh!
Woo! Who's joined the highest We Are Groot salute tier. So thank you so much, Eve. Welcome to the show. We appreciate you and your support. Amazing stuff. And before we get into our character study for this episode, do we want to chit chat very, 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 very minusculely, briefly about the Ant-Man trailer? Official full trailer has officially dropped. Ant-Man is in theaters 1 month from now.
Wow. Looks insane. Jonathan Majors is acting his butt off.
He's gonna
oh my
everybody.
God, that guy is taking over this year.
Yeah, for sure.
I was like, oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, dang, like, because I know a lot of people are saying, like, how do you even top an enemy like Thanos? You know, in Infinity Saga,
right?
And this trailer comes out, and I was like, oh, that's how you do it. Like, okay, like Kang is really that guy.
Yeah, and he's got so much on his side, and of course, as with all the other characters, Kang is one of those characters we're going to cover inevitably. So
yeah,
it's just that this guy's got time on his side. He has the quantum realm on his side. He has so many things on his side. It's gonna be a feat.
Things don't look hot for Scott. I'll say that right now.
You gotta put that on a shirt because that's marvelous. Yeah, but I really, I'm sure, and I know people out there know like what his fate is after this film, and I don't feel very secure for him and his future in the MCU. I think this could be his last stop, unfortunately, but
I'm down for whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it has to happen.
Paul Rudd and Jonathan Majors are acting their butts off.
Yeah. Ugh, I don't know if I'm ready, but we'll see. So 1 month from now, we'll all be watching the new film, and we'll discuss perhaps even a character in our next episode. But for today, we do have someone very special and near and dear to Geoffrey's heart.
Woo!
One of his wifeys.
Woo!
And a reminder, we are not experts. We don't claim to be. We're just a couple of nerds nerding out. And also, as a courtesy warning, this particular episode contains brief mentions of sexual assault and trauma.
Oh.
So please proceed
Now
with
that is
caution.
a first.
That is a first for us. So, with that said, let's get into this episode's character study. Jeffrey's like, he's like fist bumping.
Woo!
Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop, also known as Hawkeye.
Yes.
And so, created by Alan Heinberg and Jim Chung, Kate Bishop's first appearance was Young Avengers #1, April 2005. And so I have the cover for you here. I don't know if any of these characters are going to look familiar to you. Can you identify anybody in that picture?
Is that... Well, I mean, I know like what their actual heroes are supposed to be.
Yeah, they're
I know who they're
heroes,
based
right?
off of.
Yeah. So go ahead, give me a.
I mean,
give me
there's a young Hulk. There's Iron Boy Jr., a young Thor, and a masked Cap.
And a mask. Interesting. Okay, so let me just. I mean, that's a fantastic evaluation because actually you're very accurate and on point. So this is Teddy Altman, Hulkling.
Okay.
This is Patriot, who is known as Eli.
Okay.
Does that name ring a bell at all? We'll talk about him later, but
Eli.
yeah, Bradley. Eli Bradley.
You're saying all you say the generic names.
Okay. So
Oh
as
God,
Patriot,
it's been a while. Yeah.
Oh, once we get there, you'll be like, oh, Iron Lad.
Iron Lad.
Yeah, Nathaniel Richards.
Okay. Yes.
And then this is. Do you have any idea?
No.
Billy Kaplan,
Oh.
who is Wiccan.
Billy?
Billy.
Why is he holding a staff and lightning and he has the Thor wings?
I know. I didn't want to get too deep into that because that is a whole story on its own.
Yeah.
It's a Billy episode. But that is that's him as Asgardian.
Oh, well, that's where it gets thrown off.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's him as Asgardian before he becomes Wiccan, all that good stuff. And so, but yeah, as you can see, even though this is Kate Bishop's first appearance, she's not on the cover. Yeah. This is really an introduction to this team and to this era of Avengers. And so, when it comes to this issue, do you want to give a crack at how much this could be worth?
Young Avengers number uno. 2005.
Yeah.
They haven't really introduced some of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they make a movie out of these guys.
I know.
Let's go with a couple thousand.
Not bad.
This is the highest grade, right?
Yeah.
The highest grade?
9.8.
Ooh. I'm going to go 5,700.
5,700. That's generous. Well, that's not bad. That's actually not bad. So there is a breakdown with this because you got to remember variants are all the rage, right? I'll say that 20 times over.
Gross.
Variants ruined me. So in 2005, they kind of really started to do many, many more. But it was still early in the era. So this one had a couple. There was a Wizard World exclusive in particular that sold very well. And so on Shortbox, you could get a CGC 9.8 of Young Avengers #1 for $600, which is okay. That's pretty decent. But again, you got to remember, Shortbox is very much a collector's paradise. And so that's very like one collector to another. You're kind of doing each other deals and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there is a Wizard World exclusive variant, also a 9.8 CGC for $999. So,
okay.
Yeah. And of course, you remember variants, and especially ones that are like convention exclusives, are a little lower in print. So they're worth a little more. Whereas on eBay, a CGC 9.8 for a regular for this one is $1,500.
Oh.
And then closer to your estimation, a Wizard World exclusive, also CGC 9.8 on eBay, $7,000. $7 grand.
$7 grand?
$7,000.
Oh my gosh.
So how it jumps from one to the other,
Yeah.
it's kind of wild. I think one of the variants may have been colored and the other one was black and white, and the black and white costs more, and you know, there's all that collector jargon in there. But yeah, so yeah, you could go from $607,000 on this issue, and the lowest is quite a bit different. You could snag a 6.0 on short boxed for about 150 CG Seed, and then $31 for 9.6 on eBay. But that's starting.
Sure.
So, you know, who knows how far it would go. But if you want this book and you kind of love Kate Bishop as well as the characters that show up in it, you could get away with a pretty decent copy for very cheap. Lucy's start at about $75. So it's under $100. You could get a great first appearance of this character and get your collection started on a very strong start. So is this your first with Kate Bishop?
Yes, for sure.
You'd never heard of her at all before the show?
No, I think it wasn't until obviously when the HAWKEYE series was in development, and then that's when they said they were basing the show off of what's the creators of that comic run?
Fraction.
Matt Fraction run, and then that's when I kind of started with like vague slowly surface level dive deep what run is this about, and then it's like, oh, okay,
interesting. So, yeah, and didn't they, correct me if I'm wrong, but when they started talking about the show and the production of it, didn't they use those storyboards and there was Jeremy Renner's face was likeness was used in the promotional art?
Yeah,
but the girl playing Kate Bishop was very kind of vague.
Yes.
Yeah, because they hadn't announced.
They hadn't announced it, yes. Because I remember seeing rumors on Twitter saying that Haley Steinfeld's gonna play Kate Bishop,
right?
And everyone was like, "What? No, we don't know that." But then it just kept growing and growing and growing until eventually, I think Feige said it in the D23 presentation during the pandemic, I believe.
Yeah,
or it was
that digital one,
and the virtual. Everyone was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah. And so given. Oh gosh, for me, I think I did know her with Young Avengers.
Okay.
In the background, though, she wasn't at the forefront for me personally until a little later, because even in this series, she doesn't make a cover appearance until issue 5, maybe 6, and so she was really kept at bay, if you will.
Nice.
For are you baying being?
I did it, but now I am.
Oh man, she was kind of held back for me for a bit, and then she really surfaced with many things, many people with HAWKEYE, with the Fraction run, that really did bring that character as well as Clint to the forefront. And I couldn't even tell you exactly why. You know what I mean? Because HAWKEYE had been around for decades at this point, and the Fraction was what, 2012 or something.
Very, very. I know that was very recent. Yeah.
And so there was just something so special and so spectacular about it that it really catapulted Kate as a character and kind of brought her into the light of no, she really is HAWKEYE. She's not just a girl HAWKEYE or Hawk Girl or something.
She is HAWKEYE.
Yeah, she is HAWKEYE. And so before we get into all the nitty-gritties, I'm going to start this with a listener comment from Amy Agassino on Instagram. Simply, why is she so perfect?
I agree.
I was like, yes.
End episode right there. I agree. That's it. She's perfect.
You love the MCU counterpart, of course.
Oh, yeah.
We can formally introduce, of course, Kate Bishop, portrayed by Haley Steinfeld, and Clara Stack as young Kate. She's a fantastic character. And so, I think that the contrasts from the book are probably going to surprise you a bit, because as much as she has in sync with her MCU counterpart, she's almost very different too. And I'll repeat it to anybody, Haley really made me love her. I liked her before. I didn't like her so much in the beginning because of the Fraction run. Like, I'd like her much more in Young Avengers, but when she gets to the Fraction run, I was like, come on. She's a little bit of a hard ass, if you will. And so with Haley's arrival in the MCU and how she's portraying her, she's made her so much more. She's made those aspects of Kate from the books lovable, like really lovable. Like it probably translates better on an actual human being rather than just reading it off the book.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. But Catherine Kate Elizabeth Bishop is the daughter of a Manhattan socialite family. So Kate at her core is best described by Marvel itself, and they've simply written it. Kate Bishop rejected family wealth and embraced a heroic path.
There we go.
Yeah, so she was basically a socialite. So she belongs to a very rich family. They have investments in the city, and they're well known, especially her father. And right off the bat, her attachment to Hawkeye, Clinton Barton, it differs very much from the MCU. And so in this first issue of Young Avengers, you're introduced to Kate. This is the first page that she's in, and she only appears in the bottom half. And so there's basically like this new group of what seems to be costumed superheroes appears, and J. Jonah Jameson is doing what J. Jonah Jameson does. Who are these kids? What are they doing? Who are they? I need to know their names. And he immediately wants to undermine them and unmask them, if you will. And so there's this group of kids going around, and they're dubbed by the press as the Young Avengers, even though they have no official affiliation with them. And so it so happens, as this is all emerging, Kate is attending her sister's wedding in New York City, and they're being held at gunpoint for ransom, and again, socialites. So they have the influencers.
Wow.
They're all in this church, for this wedding spectacle, and they're being held hostage for their swag, their stuff. So they want the designer coats, the bags, the money, whatever. So there's 5 gunmen. There's 200 people and guests in attendance, and they're all just like, well, what do we do? And the cops they're trying to do their thing. Yeah. You know how it goes. In sweeps the Young Avengers, quote unquote. They essentially save Kate, and they save the day, more or less. The church catches on fire. It's not great. But yeah, she was inspired by that. She kind of, you see layers of her character surface throughout the small panels that she's in leading up into her full dialogue. Like, she's like, why don't we do something? Why don't we fight back? There's only 5 of them. Let's do this. And so she actually ends up helping the Young Avengers in their fight because she's so determined to do something. And so later, she at one point is abducted and held for ransom by this zealous villain named El Matador. Your face.
Wow.
Your face is great. Yeah, who we've seen in She-Hulk. She's then rescued by the Avengers. And so that's the moment in the books that once she sees the actual avenging team, she's so inspired by Clint and by Hawkeye in particular, because he's the only superhero that doesn't have superpowers. And she can relate to that. She can be like, gosh, I don't have powers either, but I want to do something great. And he proved to me that I can. So Clint, it's at that moment that Clint becomes the blueprint of what it was that inspired Kate to be greater, as we hear with many of our superheroes. And so later on down the line, or actually, the timeline is muddled here because this is one of those instances where, and this is where our trigger warning kind of comes in. This was a part of the character's origin that was written after her initial appearance. And, this is first Kate Bishop we ever see is in Young Avengers. And so this was introduced much later in the books, but Kate's life changed during a jog through Central Park, which resulted in a brutal and traumatic sexual assault.
Oh, gosh.
And so they thankfully do not show anything. They don't depict it visually, but she does talk about it in a very painful manner. And her survival from that incident introduced the suite of tactics that she would then learn. And so, like in the show, you know, as I watched the entire series, right?
I saw, yeah.
Yeah, and so in the show, for a quick recap for those who have seen it and don't remember or just haven't seen it, we were introduced to Kate, and she's inspired by seeing Hawkeye fighting during the Battle of New York. Yeah, and that's the point where she's like, I need a bow. Like the tiny thing.
I need a bow.
I need a bow and arrow. And she just kind of, I don't know, like she just follows suit with her inspiration to learn karate and learn martial arts and learn all these different ways of protecting herself. And so in the books, you know, unfortunately that catalyst comes with that assault, and that's when she learns everything from archery to martial arts and whatever she could do to protect herself so that she would never be a victim again. So it's a much darker you know, basis for Kate becoming a hero of sorts. But she later has successful tenures with the teams, including the Young Avengers, as we mentioned, and later on the West Coast Avengers, who we talked a little bit about in our America Chavez episode.
Yep.
And, you know, she's had teammates all across the board. And then later on, Kate has opened up HAWKEYE Investigations in Los Angeles.
Ooh.
So she's closer than ever, Geoffrey.
They better film here.
Ooh, that'd be actually pretty cool, right? Cool. So yes, of course. Again, Kate Bishop, portrayed by Haley Steinfeld. First and last seen in the 2021 HAWKEYE Disney Plus series, created by Jonathan Igla, directed by Rhys Thomas and Burton Birdie, with music from Christopher Beck and Michael Paraskievas.
Nice.
Thanks. So yeah. So let's chit chat about MCU, Kate.
Here's what's hilarious about MCU Kate and then Haley Steinfeld.
Mm-hmm.
I've known of Haley Steinfeld before, but obviously I never really followed her.
Same.
I never followed her. I knew she was she was in Pitch Perfect 3, which I didn't see.
I didn't either.
Yeah, but I saw the first two.
Yeah,
obviously
same.
I did.
Yeah.
She was in Bumblebee, the Bumblebee movie.
That's true. I vaguely remember that, but I did like it a lot.
And and obviously she's also famously in Dickinson.
Yeah.
Dickinson.
Oh,
So
love Dickinson. It's so good.
And I know she also has like a little bit of a pop career too, but I never really paid attention to that, only because one, I'm a boy. And I never really listened to like
music's for everybody, Geoffrey.
Well, I didn't listen to that specific like kind of generation growing up. I didn't listen to surprisingly, I didn't listen to Zendaya's music.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to Haley Steinfeld's music, but I listened to Hilary Duff back then and all that. Yeah. I didn't listen to Selena Gomez.
Were you a camp rock kid?
I didn't grow up a camp rock kid. I was original like Disney Channel home movie like that era. Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, That's So Raven, like that era.
Was she a Disney kid, by the way? Speaking of, or no?
Yes,
she was. Oh, really?
Was it? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't know.
Not.
I could
because
be,
she did that film.
Yeah.
From way back when that was the first introduction I had with her.
Okay.
Was gosh, why am I blanking on it?
Yeah, no.
But yeah.
So I was familiar with her, but I never really listened to her different forms of work.
Yeah.
So then it was obviously HAWKEYE, well, obviously because I'm gonna watch the show. That's kind of where I fell in love with her as an artist, like actor and what she's done.
For sure.
And the way that she plays Kate, like I think I was telling you this too, like when the show was first coming out, like I don't know how Kate is supposed to be because I never read, that run of the comics or never really delved deep into who Kate Bishop is in the comics. So me watching the show is like just first introduction to that character Kate as a whole.
Yeah.
So then after the show, it's like that's when I usually delve back into Dai, and I'm like, was that accurate? Was it not?
Yeah.
And then I think it was like, oh, it was pretty. Well, you said that, like you said, she was kind of like a snob in the Matt Fraction run.
Yeah.
And then this in the MCU, she's likable. Like you're rooting for her.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And I think that also comes with Haley Steinfeld of who she is as an actress.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah. And so I just quickly looked it up. So True Grit that's the one.
That's where
and so that's when I was initially introduced to her as an actress.
Okay.
And so I did see that movie, and I did love her in it. I thought she was fantastic. And so it kind of jumped for me because I went from knowing that Haley Steinfeld, I didn't even know that was her name at the time. Like, I knew her name, I didn't know who she was.
Yes.
And then I jumped all the way. It didn't land. She didn't land with me again until Spider-Verse, because she's also Gwen Stacy.
Yes.
And so when she ended up getting the role of Kate, and I'm one of those people who, with at least with Hawkeye, when all the fan talk and all the fan castings were happening, Aubrey Plaza was such a front runner.
I
with
do
the
remember
fans,
seeing that
it was an interesting thought, because like I hadn't really invested in her, but somebody did an amazing like Netflix like composition, like based on the Matt Fraction run, and I was like, you know what, Aubrey Plaza would be like totally very interesting.
I was gonna say it would be an interesting choice, because her sense of humor, or her like the way that she like her like the way that she hits certain vernacular.
Yes.
It would be a choice.
It would definitely be a choice. And I started to, like mentally like put her in situations with Jeremy Renner, or even now, like if you think back on classic moments from the show and putting Aubrey Plaza in it instead, I was like, that would have brought a slightly more mature, more deadpan, very dry version to the character.
Yes, which is what I love about Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah.
Like she's amazing.
Exactly. And I feel like, honestly, that version would resonate a little bit closer to the Fraction one. A little bit, because I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into that thought, but so when those fan castings were happening, I was like, actually, that'd be great. And so, not to say that I was disappointed when it ended up being Haley, but I was like, oh, that's actually, I see it. I like that a lot. And then the picture started emerging, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
and because of course, some of the fan castings also included actresses that skew Asian American. And so a part of me was like, that would be amazing. Like, let's do that. But no one quite fit the bill or checked all the boxes. And so, so when Haley ended up being officially the choice, I was like, I can hang with this.
You see it?
Yeah, I totally see it. And so it's nothing but grown since then. Because from the first episode, I was like, oh man, I really like her. She got me.
Yeah,
she got me.
Like she's the young, naive, like daughter of a wealthy family.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I want to be that guy.
Yeah. And like I said at the top of her comic book origin, like Marvel saying that she rejected the family wealth. And so they have these ways of, in the show, kind of playing to that nuance of like, she's reluctantly rich. Like, she knows that she can afford things and she can do things.
She doesn't want to take it.
She doesn't want to take it.
Yeah.
And like the whole, the very first scene that she has as an adult with her mother, Vera Farmiga, portraying Eleanor Bishop. I'm canceling your credit cards. And she's like, yeah, okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, she's like, what? Like, this has happened every other month for her type of deal.
Which is an insane way of growing up, because what the hell?
Yeah, exactly. Having come from that much wealth and still being so nonchalant about destroying a bell tower,
crazy.
Is kind of wild. But yeah, so, in the series where we have this immediate introduction to the 22-year-old Archer, and the year is 2024. And so this, on the timeline of MCU, this is a year after people have returned from the blip.
Got it.
So this, like, the further we get into these new age of characters,
we're slowly gonna have to.
Yeah.
We're slowly gonna like phase out like the blip aftermath.
Exactly. And so we have to like remember when all this stuff takes place. Like even now, like when it turned into the new year, I said to a friend, I was like, peak nerd here. I was like, do you realize this is the year that Shang-Chi and Falcon and the Winter Soldier actually happens?
Oh yeah.
This is the live timeline.
So isn't 2023 the year that the snap happens?
The snap
It's
happens
5 years after the snap.
Yes, this is when everybody comes back.
Yeah.
So this is like the year of reawakening for all the MCU. So we're catching up to real time. But in Hawkeye, it is 1 year ahead. And so yeah, like we mentioned before, you know, she's the daughter of wealth. Her present parent is Eleanor Bishop, who since her first introduction in the series has come up from what seemed to be money troubles between the parents and Kate, you know, young Kate not wanting to move, and her dad tragically dying in the Battle of New York.
Yeah.
Then, you know, along the way, her mother, you know, climbs up the social ladder. She does become similar to the stature she has and status she has in the books, and then now they're just wealthy, and then she becomes a superhero. Like, it's pretty cut and dry as far as that's concerned. But I
think my favorite, what sold it for me as Kate was when I guess she first like ran into Hawkeye, and then she's like, "You're Hawkeye."
Oh, you know, it's so great that you say that, because I wanted to show you this, the first time she actually meets Clint in the comics. So she's initially, I forgot which issue this is already, but she's initially introduced to Hawkeye during his Ronin phase, right? And so if you backtrack to our Hawkeye episode, which I believe is 15 or so, the whole reason why she even took up the moniker was because everybody thought Clint was dead, and it was after during Civil War, and he actually took on another moniker, which was Ronin. And so she's introduced to Ronin first.
This is in the books?
In the books.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I wanted to show you that when she finally goes to, she's invited to what is basically the Avengers Mansion, and the first time she meets Clint face to face, unmasked, she says the exact same thing that she does in the series.
Oh,
and that's
wow.
This panel right here. And it's even the same framing is the same. And it's like, oh, you're Hawkeye. And I was like, that's right.
Oh, wow.
So it was pulled straight from the book.
And I think, just her being so enamored of hanging out with him. But this is during like the time of Clint being like, I'm trying to move on from this, bro. Exactly. Like, I just lost my best friend. Yeah. I need to, like, I don't want to be who I was when I was putting on that suit.
We're not partners. Constantly. We're not partners. We're not partners. We're not partners. Yeah, he's just, and then of course, you know, we're introduced to the fact that he's doing it because, yes, he did just lose his best friend. He doesn't want to have to do this again.
Yeah.
And get the attachment of somebody. And then also with Lucky, you know, he doesn't want all these elements of people and things.
He just wants to get home.
He just wants to get home to his family, the poor guy, which is very reminiscent. It's like reverse Home Alone, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He's gone and he wants to get home to his family for Christmas. But yeah, I love their dynamic.
I do.
I thought it was a great match. They work with each other and the chemistry is so good.
It's there.
It's very much there. Yeah. You don't feel, it's not contrived. You really do feel like, even to the point where when he's trying to get rid of her, you feel his pain. Like you feel how badly he wants to get rid of her, but also why he wants to do it so badly.
Yes.
And how he opens up to her.
Because he's an Avenger.
Because he's an Avenger.
It's in his blood.
Yeah. And so I really loved the puppy-like nature that she takes on with him, which is, again, it's reminiscent of the books and how much she does look up to him and how much she does kind of like level with him. Like, Yeah, I'm a pretty good archer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but I like how she's trying to brag about it, but not say like,
right.
I did it because of you.
Yeah.
But she's like, I'm pretty good though myself.
Exactly. She's got the swag. And so I don't remember what episode it was, but it was similar to something in the books in that he even, like says to her, like, it's like, consider yourself the second best archer in the world or something.
Yeah.
And she goes like, second? And they're always kind of on that level, that balance scale between the two of them.
Yes.
And so, dear friend, before we move further, I have, I believe, 3 pop quizzes for you.
You are starting me the year off with 3 quizzes?
I know, and I'm kind of savage because I know that they're pretty hard.
They're always hard. You always ask me, how many times did they blink? And I'm like, what?
Look. When you started our entire show,
I know. That was very... That was a once in a lifetime thing. If you guys want to go to the first episode of Iron Man, so I answered one of the Dai's first pop quiz questions, and it's supposed to be very hard, and I knew it immediately.
You did it. You barely flinched. So it was so impressive.
I really set my standards high with that.
Yeah, the bar's been set like forever.
Now I don't even pay attention like that closely. Sometimes I just be focusing on the story and being like, how is this gonna pay off in the end? And
God, even the possibilities. Like I've seen Infinity War so many times and I still couldn't riff off the possibilities.
Oh, the 4,605,000.
Exactly. And that's why you have 3 pop quizzes in this show. And so, speaking of the Hawkeye series, at the end of the Hawkeye series, Clint and Kate riff off about potential superhero aliases.
Oh, crap.
Kate could take on. Multiple choice.
Thank God.
Which of the following was not one of the aliases?
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Was it HAWKEYE, Lady Arrow, Hawkingbird, Lady Hawk, or Hawkshock?
Which one was not?
Which one was not? HAWKEYE, Lady Arrow.
Lady Arrow, I for sure know is one.
Okay.
I'm doing process of elimination here, guys.
Hey, that's what you gotta do.
Lady Arrow is not one.
Hawkingbird.
Did you say Hawkingbird or Hawk and Bird?
Hawkingbird.
ING.
ING.
Hawkingbird.
Lady Hawk.
Lady Hawk is definitely one of them.
And then Hawkshock.
For some reason, Hawkshock does not ring a bell. HAWKEYE? Where did she even get that from? Like Adam and Eve? HAWKEYE? I remember this scene vaguely too.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, what do you think about these names?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no. No. Really?
Yeah.
Hawkshock?
Hawkshock.
That sounds so inappropriate.
Why?
Because it rhymes, because shock rhymes with something else.
Oh my God.
Rhymes with a chicken. Hawkshock, HAWKEYE,
And Hawkingbird.
Hawkingbird.
Yeah.
Hawkingbird. I'm trying to imagine if it's something that she would say.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? Lady Hawk, Hawkingbird. That's not one of them.
That's not one of them?
Oh, I mean she mentions that, I think. So I'm torn between the HAWKEYE. I gotta go Hawkshock.
You think Hawkshock?
I have to go Hawkshock. That one felt the most out of place for me.
Okay. So
now I'm gonna have to, if I get this wrong, I'm gonna have to go watch it again.
So we're gonna drop the clip in right here.
Yes,
and
we are.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah, sure.
What do you think of Lady Hawk?
Oh, yeah, that's terrible.
HAWKEYE?
No, it's worse.
Damn, okay. Hawkshot.
No,
Lady Arrow?
none of those.
Okay, fine.
You know what? Actually, I have an idea.
And then the answers are, if you didn't hear that, she does mention HAWKEYE, Lady Arrow, Lady Hawk, and if you can believe it, Hawkshock.
No way.
Yeah, the only one she did not mention was Hawkingbird. And
I knew it. That was my second choice.
Really,
that was my second choice.
That's a derivative from the comic books, but
she didn't.
On the show, she never said it. And you know, I will say, in your defense, I watched it both on YouTube as well as Disney Plus with the captions on, just to see like what did she actually say. HAWKEYE, I have no idea. I have no idea why it's HAWKEYE. Not sure where she's pulling that
Where
from.
does she get Hawk?
No idea.
It's got to be an Adam and Eve reference.
I don't know,
but
and maybe. And I think the caption was different on YouTube.
Okay.
But I trust Disney Plus, so that's where I got it from. And Hawkshock, yeah, not sure.
Hawkshock.
Hawkshock.
Okay. I'm gonna have to rewatch that.
So Hawkingbird is the one that she didn't mention, and we'll talk a little
I'm
bit.
0 for 1 on the new year, guys.
We'll talk about a little bit about Hawkingbird in a minute, but let's dive into powers and paraphernalia, which there isn't much to say, to be honest, because again, Kate does not have any actual powers. However, she's highly gifted in many things. She's a skilled athlete, proficient in martial arts, also a master archer and marksman, adept swordswoman, and she's a cellist.
She's a...
So she knows how to play cello.
Hell yeah.
While in the MCU, Kate is known to excel in boxing, jiu-jitsu, hand-to-hand combat, kickboxing, and various martial arts. And of course, shout out to stuntwoman Heidi Moneymaker, who's not only played many pivotal role in the MCU, including that of Black Widow, but she also took on stunt direction for the show. And so I think when she was breaking down the martial arts or that the fighting styles that Yelena is capable of in the show, I think she also mentioned Kate's. But yes, they do include jujitsu and, you know, like I don't want to botch the words, but it's a handful of specific martial arts styles that Kate just excelled in, and we get an idea of how skilled she is by, again, the first scene that she has with her mother as an adult, where she's like, I brought home another one, and it's like a gold medal.
Yeah.
For you know, like US championships. And so and then the subtle response that Eleanor has is of like, oh, we're gonna have to take some of your old ones out of the case because that's won't
too
fit.
much. Yeah.
So it's kind of amazing how versatile and combative this character is in the MCU. And so I'm curious to see more of that. And what I did appreciate I watched the Assembled again as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and how I believe the showrunner mentions, like, yeah, they wanted to really give her almost a slapsticky, like, street level way of fighting that she just uses anything.
Yeah.
If it's in her grasp and she doesn't have her bow and arrow or it doesn't make sense, she's going to use a bottle that she can just grab, or she's going to use a chair or a shopping cart like she does and slide across the floor. Which, speaking of, did you notice how many times people slip and slide in that series?
Yeah.
I was like, it's a lot.
The snow gets
It's
you
all
like
the
that.
snow. Yeah. Like they're slipping and sliding all around the toy store, and then they're slipping and sliding on the street, and then
I mean, the last episode, the rink, yeah.
It's wild. But yeah, that's it as far as powers. I mean, like I love that she didn't get an upgrade yet at the end of the show, right? She still had her traditional bow and arrow.
I think so.
Yeah.
From what I'm
right.
I think they just upgraded the different types of arrows.
Yeah.
That they used in one of the episodes.
Right.
That Hawkeye was showing, like, and she's like, whoa.
Yeah.
You have so many arrows.
Yeah. And I think you know how the glow up, as we've called it, I think Kate's will more or less, like, sure, she'll get a little suit upgrade. But
from who? I don't know, but
that's a good question.
We'll see.
Yeah. But more importantly, she'll eventually get a bow upgrade, which I think is going to be pretty dope, because I think one of my favorite things about Hawkeye, for instance, is how I believe it was Thor or Avengers where he pulls out his arrow. It's like,
oh yes,
and it like uncompresses or whatever it is. Yeah. I'd love to see Kate with one of those.
I know, that'd be sick.
Nice outfit. So I guess we can, unless you have any other favorite moments that you want to talk about as far as powers and paraphernalia go.
I think I was very like impressed with, and I knew she had to be good with a bow and arrow because that's obviously who she is.
Mm-hmm.
But even like her fighting, I think one of my favorite scenes was the warehouse scene where they're both captured, or Hawkeye gets captured, Clint gets captured, and then she tries to save him, and she just crashed through the window. But then they get into that fight. Like she's using the shopping cart, she's using like everything around her.
Love it.
I thought that was a very fun fight. And then you go into the chase scene with the car on the freeway. That was really fun.
That scene does not get old. Like
that's really fun.
And I plumb forgot that it was like shot. It was actually shot.
Yeah.
You know, aside the close-ups, of course, but the fact that the actual motion of that scene is practical and that they're on a rig and actually turning around.
Yes.
That is so good. And also the added comical value that Clint can't
hear anything. Yes.
Yeah. I love it. But yeah, I do love how they really display her powers as far as her skill set when it comes to using a bow and arrow. And how she is very much as good of a shot as Clint is.
Yes.
You know, like what I loved most about, at least when it comes to their teamwork, is that like when they're on the bridge, for instance, and Kaz is coming down with the tracksuit bros, and Clint does that just magnificent, like Jeremy Renner. Let me just say, he really portrays himself as like an archery master.
Yes.
Like he really does. Like I believe that guy is
I'm sold 100%.
Yeah, 100% sold. But when he shoots the pim arrow into the air and just like flawlessly and he's like, wait for it, and then she contacts, and then like
that was really
so
cool.
Good.
That was really fun.
Yeah. How much do you think that cost?
That shot?
The city of New York.
Oh, to fix that or to take it out. I don't even know how you would take it out.
I know. Well, they'd have to shrink it again.
Oh,
and then
I doubt they know how to though.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, oh gosh, imagine being Scott getting that call. Yeah, I just love because you know, being Hawkeyes is all about the teamwork, and so they really did translate that beautifully because they're like that in the books as well. Aesthetic. So, question for you: do you know about the Purple Store of Seattle?
I am not familiar.
I put this on here because I wanted to show you. There is a store in Seattle that is literally called
the Purple
Store, and they have nothing. And their tagline is "Everything we sell is purple."
Well, at least they're true to their marketing.
Yeah, and it's near the public market, like
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's right up the street from that, and I just thought it was so funny because like every time I see it when I'm in Seattle, I'm like, Kate and Clint shop there because that's all they wear in the books.
Purple. It literally is purple.
Yeah. So in the books themselves, Kate has donned a few costumes. She has this classic like midriff getup, which is in Young Avengers, and so it's quite literally like it's a midriff top, and she's kind of got a scarf thing going on, and then purple pants. It's all purple.
Oh wow!
But a consistent thing about Kate in the books is that she sometimes has a headband, and shades, and then the rest is kind of
whatever
mismatch. Yeah. And then she has what is more iconically known as the thigh cut suit.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that was one that people thought she would have had in the show because it was the Matt Fraction version.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm gonna pull it up here, and of course I'll post this on social as well. But yeah, she has a few of some of which we've actually seen in the Avengers game too. So let me show you. So this is the thigh cut suit. And so it is very reminiscent of what she wears in the show, but
a little bit
like iconically.
Oh yeah,
has
that's unnecessary.
Very
that's unnecessary.
This very strange cutout from on her thighs. depending on who draws it. It's, I don't know. It's an interesting thought. But it stuck for a very long time, and I know many a cosplayer that had struggles with it because it's not practical. Here's the midriff suit. It's that.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Again, it's a comic book thing. So she's showing a little flesh, appeasing a few of the readers. But overall, the suits are very consistent as they are similar. The modernized suit is very close to what we see in the show. But speaking of Hawkingbird, she did have, when she first suited up with the Young Avengers, quote unquote, officially, this is like, it's like a security breach at Stark's mansion or the Avengers compound. And Kate, more or less, she's unequipped. She doesn't have anything, but she has her skills. And so she kind of reached for whatever she could find. And so they teasingly call her Hawkingbird because she made a suit and stole equipment, uniforms used previously by Hawkeye, Mockingbird, Swordsman, and Black Widow. Oh. And so, quick recap, we know who Black Widow is, but Swordsman is Jacques Ducan, who trained Hawkeye in the books.
Oh, wow.
And then
in the show
is the stepdad, if you will. And then Mockingbird is Bobby Morse, who is Clint's ex-wife in the books. And then they kind of amalgamated her for Laura
in MCU.
Barton in the MCU. And then Hawkeye, of course, is Clint. And so this is
what a connection.
That's what the Hawkingbird outfit looks like. I like the Hawkingbird outfit.
That is pretty.
I think it's cute.
Yes, that is pretty bad.
Yeah, so she's got like Bobby's mask, and she's got God knows what she pulled the rest of it from, but you know, the bows and arrows, and then the batons, and yeah, it's cool. But yeah, so in the series, it doesn't stray too far from the comic book origin outfits. And she does have quite a few in the show. She upgrades in the show very subtly, which is kind of cool. So the first identifiable outfit is what Eleanor describes as her fencing outfit.
Yes.
So it's also purple. And then she officially debuts with Maya Lopez's first appearance at the end of episode 2. That's not fencing, the archery suit. And so which is pretty cool because it looked official to me. If you ask me, it looked like a Hawkeye suit.
Yeah.
But of course it is then outdone by the LARPer suit. That Kate herself
the LARPer suit
that Kate barters with the LARPers. For those of you who don't remember, the live action role play gang in Central Park. So yeah, Kate barters with the crew to get 2 suits made for she and Clint to help their quote unquote branding and their marketing strategy. So he's more known as Hawkeye. But yeah, that's definitely more athletic like gear. You can tell it's made out of perhaps even Kevlar. Who knows? I mean, that's generally what Hawkeye's outfits were made out of.
Yeah.
When he's on the Avengers. What I did like is that I couldn't find the official name for it, but on Kate's belt in particular, she had the different arrowheads. She had like a multi-tool.
Yes.
I don't know what that's called.
I don't know.
I thought that's so cool.
Yeah. Reminds me of in Avengers 1 with Clint where he chooses his arrows.
Yeah, that's a good callback.
With the button,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That's a great way to think about it because it's almost as if they're calling back, right? And so she's like grassroots, so she's got it on her belt. Whereas eventually she'll probably have an outfit like that where she's like, do, 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 and then she's got the arrow knocks. And of course, Kate canonically has blue eyes in the books. So they've mirrored that and they've put contacts on Haley.
Yes. I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. In the poster itself, it's very noticeable. I think there are a couple of shots where you're not sure. You're like, are those her eyes or there? Because I feel like there are a few scenes where they might have forgotten to put them in or something because it looks like Haley's eyes, which are very much hazel, I guess, greenish hazel.
Yeah.
Hazel. And she's got blue for the most part. And also to match Vera Farmiga, because she has natural blue eyes.
Yeah.
So it made sense. And I think the guy did too. I think the man who played her father did as well.
Oh, her biological father.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. But yeah, so back to the comics real quick. Fun fact. Okay, do you remember that white shirt she wore in here it is. The Leica shirt. This one. Do you remember this?
Yes.
So fun fact about that one. It is once again a direct callback to the comics, which you can also see here.
Uh-huh.
And so Leica is a stray mongrel of a dog from Russia that was born in 1954.
Uh-huh.
And she was a Soviet space dog.
She
Yeah.
was a Soviet space.
Leica was.
Leica, okay.
Yeah. And so
Cosmo?
I know, it's very reminiscent of Cosmo, actually. And so Leica was among one of the first animals in space, as well as one of the first to orbit Earth. Yeah.
Jeez.
And she flew aboard Sputnik 2 in 1957.
Okay.
But, sadly, she was set for disaster because she never returned to Earth.
Yeah. We all know how the Sputnik went.
Yeah, we all know how that went. So sadly, yeah, she didn't make it. But Kate wears the shirt. It's kind of like a little Easter egg that I think David Aja kind of threw into the book just because it's a neat little thing.
Yeah.
And she's also in the panel. She's got Lucky next to her. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay. So they imported that look from the comic books to the MCU. Okay, so this is a little quick, but you ready for your next pop quiz?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, let's see if I remember what I wrote here. During the comic book version of Civil War, whose side do you think Kate chose? Cap or Iron Man?
Oh.
It's not really a pop quiz. It's kind of like an informative
Yeah,
opinion.
that is interesting. And
Right.
I hope I just get it right.
Yep.
That is interesting.
And also, added value to this bit of the conversation. Imagine if Kate were in Civil War.
Who do you think she would?
Who would she side with? Because that could help you with the answer too.
That is tough. I feel like it would be... I'm leaning towards Cap.
Yeah?
I am leaning towards Cap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, much like Hawkeye in the film, Kate's comic book counterpart stood by her mentor and sided with Captain America.
Yeah!
Like us too. We do.
Captain America.
Thank you, Jennifer. And during Civil War II, however, because there are two parts to this, remember, we've talked about this before. During Civil War II, the two were at odds. Clint sided with Captain Marvel and Kate sided with Iron Man. And so that, you have to remember, though, I mean, comparatively, if you were to kind of draw parallels between both scenarios, Captain America's side is Iron Man's side in Civil War II. And then Iron Man's is Captain Marvel's. And so Clint more or less swapped sides, and then Kate stayed on the same side. So that's kind of what it was. And so very quickly, Civil War II ended up being about this Inhuman named Ulysses who had the power of premonition, and Captain Marvel was on side. Yeah, of course, use him for everything he's got. Let's find out what happens before it happens and stop it before it happens.
Oh, gosh.
And then Iron Man was like, we shouldn't do that.
That's not a good thing.
Yeah, and so Kate was on the we shouldn't do that side. But well done, Jeff.
I do my best.
So from there, we're just going to move on to family, friends, and affiliations. And so, again, we've talked about Clint quite a bit just because I also love Clint. But we covered the character in episode 15. Once again, the duo don't actually meet in the comics until Young Avengers presents number 6. So that's the issue where she encounters Ronan, and then you're Hawkeye. But to give some context to what actually happens in that issue, she's actually on a date with Patriot, who is Eli. And Bradley, and it's kind of it kind of sucks because we'll talk about it a little later, but she more or less like friend zones him.
Nice.
Which sucks.
Been there.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah. And so that issue in particular was written by Matt Fraction as well, but featured art by Alan Davis, Mark Farmer, and Paul Mounts. And so the two met after Civil War. She goes by the namesake to honor him. They go through many arcs, weaving in and out of one each other's periphery. And then, Kate, again, she eventually splinters off into her own, makes a name for herself as Hawkeye as well. And then later she's recruited to help him take on street level crime in Bed-Stuy, which is kind of where we see the Disney Plus series start. So it's very similar on that end. And of course, Clint Barton, portrayed by Jeremy Renner. I hope he's steadily getting well.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah.
It was really nice to see him post on Instagram after that accident.
It was a huge relief because this year has not been kind to celebrities already.
Yes.
But yeah, so knock on wood and send a little prayer over to Jeremy Renner and hope that he's doing well. First scene in Thor, last scene in Hawkeye, 10 years.
Crazy.
10 years. So as we mentioned in many of these episodes, like it tends to happen that around their decade, we see a lot of our superheroes kind of fade out of view and then make room for the new kids. But I don't know. I think we could still see a couple of Hawkeye cameos, maybe one or two. Nothing huge.
I see. Yeah, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I said this in one of the last few episodes. Like, just let the original 6 fizzle out.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I have seen some dumb rumors, not dumb, but like from like certified leakers who just get popped up, like certified scoops.
Oh no.
Certified scoop. So
oh no.
I've read some things.
Oh no.
I know.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like the undertone.
Oh no. But I've just seen some things of like not like deaths but people of certain people returning.
Oh.
And I'm like,
interesting.
oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I read one the other day that I know you would like, but I'm not gonna say it. Yeah.
Whoa, that's so ambiguous.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm here for that. So hopefully we'll see a little more of him. Again, not going to talk too much about him. He's riddled throughout this episode as well as his own. Then Lucky, the pizza dog. Little Lucky.
The only reason why my girlfriend would watch Hawkeye with me, but she still didn't.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I was like, tell her there's a golden retriever and he has one eye. And then Geoffrey like unfurled into this big bit of knowledge. Yeah. So yeah, there's not much to talk about Lucky. We talked quite a bit about him in the comics and in the show, in the Hawkeye episode. In the comics, however, Kate does now have custody of the dog, shared with Clint, despite him being in New York. So you'll see the pooch, flip back and forth between storylines at times. But he seems to be predominantly with Kate. Whereas on the show, Lucky is portrayed by Jolt. Follow Jolt on Instagram, if you will. And then she is a female Poochie Pooch, trained by Jacqueline Johnson. Which, of course, is actually kind of funny in retrospect because until I rewatched the series, I didn't quite realize exactly when they called her Lucky or called him Lucky.
Oh, yeah.
Because they do refer to Lucky as Pizza Dog for what seems the entire series.
Yeah,
they just say Pizza Dog until the final scene of the series.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's such a throwaway too because it's when Kate and Clint get back to the Barton farm. Yeah. And then one of the kids is like, oh, your dog, how cute. What's his name? And then she's like, Lucky. And I was like, oh my God, they call it literally the last scene of the series. Pizza Dog. And Jolt herself was 3 years at the time of filming the show.
Aw.
So she's what? 6 now? 5 or 6?
Probably.
Oh,
yeah.
she's as old as Rocket.
Wow.
Well, Rocket's not even in the room. But yeah, so she's about 5 or 6 now. Yeah, and gotta love some Pizza Dog. Love that connection too. In the assembled, Jacqueline mentions, that Haley spent a good amount of time with Jolt to kind of familiarize herself with them and with her, and they kind of built up a chemistry that you can see on screen.
Yeah.
And the dog is very trusting and loving of Haley, and they're like buddies now, which is like adorable.
I love that.
Yeah. And so before we get into her family, I wanted to list some honorable mentions to Kate's teams in the comics, including the Avengers, Young Avengers, the Champions, West Coast Avengers, Secret Avengers, and of course my girl Jessica Jones, with whom Kate shares many things, including her trauma. I do have a screenshot of the Young Avengers. This is the iteration of the team with America and Kid Loki and some other familiar faces, but that's the Young Avengers. Kid Loki has an Instagram account.
That's
in
Loki
the
of
books.
Asgard. Yeah. That's hilarious.
So he posts all these things. It's pretty great. And then and as we've said in a couple of these episodes now, many of the Young Avengers have begun to surface in the MCU, including Wiccan and Speed, aka Billy and Tommy. In addition to America, Cassie Lang, Kid Loki, etc. So, I mean, there's no way this isn't a setup. Like it can't just be an homage. It's a setup.
Yeah.
But I will say, there are 2 friends in the MCU that have been introduced. One of which may be an actual lead to a future MCU character, but there are Greer and Franny? Yeah, Franny. I get mixed up with Yelena's dog. Greer and Franny, who are introduced in the very first episode with Kate. Mm-hmm. They're the 2 friends that are watching her. Yes. Yeah. So they're the two girls watching Kate try and, successfully pull off the dare of ringing the bell. Greer and Franny themselves portrayed by Nichelle Lambert and Regina Bryant, respectively. It's funny because I was trying to figure out the names because I wanted to make sure do they have a comic book counterpart? And I could swear the caption showed Jane for Greer at one point, and I was like, Jane? That sounds weird, but I could be wrong. I don't know. But while there are no comic book counterparts for these particular characters, there is mild speculation. And I remember seeing this when the show had debuted. There's mild speculation that Greer Nelson could also be Greer Nelson from the books, who's known as Tigra.
Okay.
And we've mentioned Tigra very briefly. She's basically a female living human cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah, a feline-esque human Tigra, formerly known as the cat. But yeah, her first name is Greer as well. And so that could be that character. I mean, she's clearly not physically, but she could become that character. Who knows? We don't know. We don't know yet. But as far as family is concerned, there's Jacques Ducan.
Yep. Of course. Jacques Ducan.
Jacques Ducan, which in the comic books, of course, is swordsman, unrelated to Kate at large, does not have any relation to her at all. In a very quick brief, swordsman trained Clint to become a master with bladed weapons and is described as a swashbuckling freedom fighter and embezzler of the carnival that the Barton brothers grew up in. So they had this huge thing. You can hear more about it in episode 15. But of course, Jack Duquesne.
Yeah.
There's an Americanized Jacques Duquesne. Jack Duquesne. Jack, portrayed by Tony Dalton in the MCU. And the series is full of red herrings, one of which is Jack himself. Like they completely positioned him as the antagonist.
Yeah.
At least where Kate's mom is involved, like throughout the entire series until probably the last episode or 2.
It was like second to last.
Yeah. It was
maybe
finally
last.
cleared of his motive.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought he was great. He was fun. And he did come off as a swashbuckling swordsman. Because, a notable thing about Eleanor's house, or how the bishop home changed, was that there was all these swords everywhere. And it came with Jack. Nice little comic homage there. So this is the part of the comics where it gets a little rocky. So, as I kind of mentioned earlier, when we first meet Kate in the comics, she's at her sister's wedding.
Yes.
So there's a sister in the comics that does not seem to be present whatsoever
in the MCU. And unlike America, because America ended up having a younger sister, unlike America, I do feel that for Kate, there's no room for it. Like, yes,
they'd have to build up one tall story for her sister to have existed.
Be involved.
Yeah. And somehow not be at that house when the Battle of New York was happening.
Yes.
But in the comic books, her name is Susan Bishop, and she's the estranged older sister who somewhat steps into her father's role later in life. So we're going to talk about Derek Bishop more in just a second, but she kind of takes the helm after things go down with the dad, and she more or less rejects Kate and the concept that Kate wants to be better and be a superhero. She's not into any of that. So they immediately have friction. She's only been in the books, I think, maybe 10 times, maybe less, maybe a smidge more, but not more than that. So she's not really around at all. She, of course, has no MCU counterpart, so I doubt we'll see her. But someone we have seen in the MCU, Derek Bishop, portrayed by Brian Darcy James. And so, the introduction and overview of that character is very short, unfortunately, but you do feel the gravity of how his legacy affects her.
Yes.
Because like we mentioned, he's only in the first 5 minutes of the show, I guess. Or
pretty
at
much
least that flashback.
Yeah.
So with what little time we have of him in the show, the series, you get the idea that he's inherited the lavish home that they live in, but he couldn't keep up with the payments, let alone the lifestyle, and so he's taken on some, unmentioned means of financial gain, which clarify at the end of the series. And he tragically dies during the Battle of New York, presumably by, some Chitauri whale, probably like
Chitauri whale.
Whales, they're whales.
I mean, that's a valid argument.
What would you call them?
I don't actually. I would have known, but then you said whale, and I was like, oh, that actually does.
Whale.
That makes a lot of sense.
They even make sounds like whales. I think I actually mentioned their names in like maybe the Star-Lord episode or something, but I call them Chitauri whales. And so sadly, Derek Bishop may have succumbed to one of those, but in the comic books, he couldn't be further from how he's represented in the MCU. So Derek Bishop in the books, he is instead a wealthy publisher magnate who was also notably distant from his own daughters despite raising them as a single father.
Wow. Oh, wow. Very interesting. What a total
single father
flip of a script.
Very, very, very different. So, so Derek in the books, he often distracted himself with his business rather than what remained of his family. A widower. So we get the idea. He's a widower. Eleanor Bishop does not have as big of a role, I guess, is kind of safe to say in the books, as Derek does, at least comparatively with the MCU. It's kind of like Derek is more in line with MCU Eleanor than Eleanor is herself. But so he's a widower in the books. He eventually remarried a woman named Heather, who, for the record, so imagine Derek's in the vein of, I don't know, 50...
Sure.
55. Let's say 55. And so he remarries after Eleanor. He marries this woman named Heather, who once attended high school with Kate.
Jeez. Gross.
Granted, she was a senior when Kate was a freshman. still.
Does it make a difference?
Exactly. So that kind of sets the tone for Derek in the comics. And
I wonder why they switched it. I wonder what their reasoning was for switching it for the show.
I agree. I'm so curious.
Maybe it's
so curious.
I mean, I guess one reason was because Clint is already a father, so they have that father figure there in the show already.
And too many male antagonists, maybe.
Yeah, and then, they're like, they probably...
Especially with Jacques Ducan.
Yeah, and they signed Vera. They're able to get Vera Farmiga, who's an amazing actor.
I love her.
So, why not? And she has... She's so good where it's like, yeah, you want to root for her, but then you get to the end of the show, you're like, oh my God, she's working with the bad guy.
She flips you on your head, everything. She flipped the entire thing. So in a dramatic turn of events in the books, Derek is able to, he has this point where God, how do I even put this? He has a younger clone of his body. There's this whole storyline, and he's able to transfer himself into the younger version of himself. Mm-hmm. And he has powers. Maybe that's why they didn't do it.
Maybe, sure.
But throughout the issues, you do see him as this very aging, very annoyed older man who's very rich, has too much money, wants nothing to do with anybody except for his young wife. And then eventually they just sail off to the sunset on their yacht. And he's younger and he's enjoying his life. And so he's kind of sadly, and so that's what leaves room for Susan, for instance. Mm-hmm. So he goes off and does his own thing, and then Susan kind of comes up and rises up in the ranks, and so she's like sitting on the throne, if you will. And so I wanted to talk about Eleanor, all that said, because we're so invested and introduced to Eleanor as a pillar in Kate's life.
Yes.
She's all about her mom, and her mom is all she has left.
Yes.
And so similarly to the show, Eleanor was privy to Derek's business. So the whole thing about them having that fight in the beginning of their introduction.
Yeah.
If you hear the dialogue, instead of paying attention to Kate eavesdropping, so adorable in her tiny, tiny form.
Yeah.
You get the gist that they're having money problems. Eleanor's upset at Derek for what he's done to get said money and how he can't keep up with the money. And so in the books, she knew about that as well, but she would take part. So they were kind of like a co-op. They would go into the dirty business together. But in this classic case of what lines up to basically be the perfect true crime story, Derek cooked up a scheme to kill off Eleanor. During a visit to Colorado. It's so random. I don't recall there being a basis for why it was Boulder, Colorado, of all places, but they talk about it very distinctly. So he has a scheme. He tries to kill her off, and it's because not only he was already cheating on her, she started cheating on him, and it's part of the connection that she starts to formulate with a young Kate Bishop. And she tries to explain to her daughter, I'm sorry this is happening. I know that this isn't your dad, but you'll understand when you're older.
Yeah.
And so that kind of sits with Kate. And of course, the series of events that builds up on this character in the books and makes her who she ends up being, which I do think that's what contributes to the fact that she is cold and a little pretentious in the books. Is because of all this from her parents and her sister, and so Derek tries to kill her, and despite the efforts, it did not kill her, but instead it turned her into a vampire.
Oh my gosh, that's so dramatic.
I know, and that's America Chavez.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's so dramatic.
Isn't it dramatic? Yeah. So I think that
it literally says next. Dun dun dun. Everything is the worst. Dramatic conclusion imminent.
Yeah. So it's crazy, right? So I think this is also a reason why, compacted with the idea that they got Vera Farmiga. they're like, we don't waste that talent. You got to use the most
Yeah.
out of her. And also like, let's not make her into a vampire. I think that has something to do with it. But, Eleanor herself, and also just noting, half vampire. Not full.
Only half.
Only half.
Thank God.
So she only has a tiny bit of taste for blood, but it does happen. So aside from that, she worked with one of Kate's biggest nemesis, Madame Mask, before her eventual exit from activity. So she's kind of out of the books now. She made her exit to kind of live or restart her life.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big dramatic storyline, but yeah, it's very different from the Eleanor we know. And so, yeah, when it comes to her MCU counterpart, there's a lot to unpack with that version of the character as well in her own right. Like I mentioned, she's grown from middle-class life to the wealthy CEO of Bishop Security, working with nonprofits for charity functions and, like that's how many of the events that happen in the series, she's trying to raise money for one nonprofit, and then there's also the underground auction that's happening. I don't remember if she was related to that though, but I would imagine so.
Maybe. Not sure.
Yeah, right? Like it's kind of muddled. I don't remember, because Jack clearly knew about it. He's there with his father.
Yes.
So who was at the helm of that? I'm not sure. I have to revisit that maybe. But yeah, she also, Eleanor was also a walking red herring throughout the entire series until her final uncovering, working for Wilson Fisk.
Plot twist.
Plot twist. And then, it's cleared and clarified that she basically, like similarly to the comic books, she got into that dirty business because her husband accumulated debts that she had to kind of pay forward and make up for. And then, of course, at the very end of the series, she's carted away by police. So big question, do you think we'll actually see her again?
I say it's possible. I just don't know where or when.
Yeah.
I feel like if it was in a Kate focused show movie, obviously, but it happens.
It happens, yeah. I'd love to see her again because she's an amazing actress.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Same thoughts. So next pop quiz.
Oh,
this one's kind of brutal, I'll admit.
thanks.
You're welcome. So, as we know, Kate's boss is her mother herself.
Yes.
The Archer works for Bishop Security. During the various parts of the series where Kate accesses her Bishop Security app,
Yes.
what is Kate's user login?
God. God.
You gotta be looking at the text,
I
man.
know. I thought you were gonna say how many times did she break into her mom's? I would have been like,
Too
ooh,
easy.
I know this one.
Too easy. No, you gotta know her username. What's her username?
Lady Hawk. I can't even.
No
gosh.
guesses whatsoever?
Hot girl.
Hawk.
No, I can't even.
None?
I can't.
Okay. I know. Again, admittedly, it's pretty hard. You'd have to see it a few times for it to resonate. I have remembered the first and last half, but not the middle. And so it's simply Bishop 11 2012. Bishop 11 2012. But I will say, myself and the internet have no idea what the
Correlation
11,
is
2012. Yeah, we're not sure.
It's probably when the Battle of the New York.
May 2012. Yeah. So it could be the fraction line. It could be
Maybe
an issue.
Yeah.
We're not sure, but yeah, Bishop 2012. So you're 2 for 3. I congratulate you. No, wait.
1 for 3.
1 for 3.
Thanks.
I
Frank's
gave you.
rubbing it in. Yeah. All right, podcast is done. I'm posting
you did
it. No
well.
edits.
No, you're good. So I guess from there we'll move on to adversaries. once again, one of my top 3 adversaries in the comics, the tracksuit Draculas or tracksuit Mafia or the tracksuit Bros are in the comic book, are also consistent both in the MCU and in the comics. They kind of originated with a man named Ivan Benines, who used to own Barton's apartment building in Bed-Stuy. The tracksuits are known for saying bro a lot, and they do.
They do.
And they say bro.
Bro.
Hey, bro.
Bro. What
Bro.
bro?
While in the MCU, the tracksuit Mafia have Fra-Fee as Kazimierz Kazimierczak.
Nice.
Kazi. At the forefront, he is the second in command beneath Maya Lopez, who we'll talk about next. But Kazi in the show, he worked in conjunction with William Lopez, who was commander of the tracksuits, and later partnered with Wilson Fisk, who ultimately became its leader. Yeah, and Kazi himself actually appears. He does have a comic book counterpart, who's very different. I kind of want to pull up a picture, because you'll be astounded about how he looks in the comics. But he is a character in the books. Looks very different.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like oh my gosh, the guy from Halloween. Mike Myers.
Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
So Kazi, he had a somewhat predominant role in the Fraction Aja Hawkeye series, known as Clown. That's why it's with the white makeup and the little teardrop and stuff. And so he, in the books, he's actually the guy that ended up killing Grills. Do you remember Grills on the show?
Grills.
Yeah.
Yes. Was that the guy that he wanted to go? Like, he bought concert tickets or no?
No. Grills is the guy who stole the Ronin suit.
Oh.
The lovable guy.
Yes.
So in the books, Clown killed that comic book counterpart,
wow.
who you also learn to love in the comics very much. He's not a LARPer at all. He's an older gentleman that Clint befriends. But yeah. So thankfully, Kazi did not kill him in the MCU, who, by the way, is portrayed by Clayton English. So yeah, Maya Lopez in the MCU, portrayed by Alaqua Cox, first and last seen in Hawkeye, and she will be next seen in Echo.
Which comes out soon, I think, too,
Does it?
right?
Is it this year?
I forget. I honestly forget.
I don't remember the Disney Plus timeline.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
But I know they filmed it and everything, so.
Yeah, and so, of course, Maya Lopez herself has such a... She has her own standing when it comes to the books. So, and we certainly have seen a lot of her, enough of her to have her own episode, so we're not going to talk too much about her. But like many of the adversaries that our superheroes encounter in the MCU, as well as the books, they don't really have a direct correlation. Like it has nothing to do with Kate. It's all because she's with Clint.
Yes.
And Clint's partner, or not partner, if you will. But yeah, when it comes to the comics, they don't have a direct correlation as well. Though, other attributes of Maya's backstory are pretty aligned with what the show has presented. So I guess it's just kind of like, okay, right place, right time. Let's put them together. And then, of course, there's Yelena Belova.
Oh, my gosh.
Portrayed by my wife, Florence Pugh. She's mine. First seen in Black Widow, last seen in Hawkeye. We covered Yelena in episode 31 of the show, so go back to season 2 and check it out if you'd like. But very much like Maya, no direct correlation whatsoever in the books, not even in the show.
But great chemistry.
Oh, fantastic chemistry. Off the charts.
Love those two together.
Yeah, love them together. Hope to see more of them together. Probably will, because they are, in fact, the new Black Widow and Hawkeye. So yeah, there's that is not the list that we've seen of Yelena Belova.
Woo!
Whereas there is a big bad man by the name of Wilson Fisk, that we do see in the show, portrayed by Vincent D'Onofrio. First seen in Netflix's Daredevil.
So good.
Last seen in Hawkeye. But yeah, unfortunately, the same goes for him. There's no direct correlation when it comes to the comics. Although the relations with the tracksuits and the general underworld that is like New York's criminal underground, those, sure, they put them in the same buckets at times, but nope, nothing much. It's not her arch nemesis. It's clearly Daredevil's. Sometimes Elektra's. But yeah, it's kind of funny to, I don't know, not funny. Funny's not the word, but it's kind of wild to watch him toss her around that toy store.
I know. I was
Jesus.
like, oh wow.
Yeah.
I was like, I forget how strong he really is technically.
Yeah.
And then like and then I play the games like the Spider-Man PS4 game, and I'm like, oh, okay, no, yeah, he's supposed to be pretty.
Yeah, he's brutal.
Yeah,
just mass.
But then I think it's because the way that how do you humanize that in a live action? Mm-hmm. And so you saw that obviously a little bit in the Netflix Daredevil series. Yeah, he was still pretty grounded, but you knew he was tough. Yeah. But then in Hawkeye, you saw that as like, oh, okay, he is a big boy.
Yeah, yeah, ripping
almost
like
near indestructible type of deal.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of like, it's another instance of, I wouldn't necessarily call them arch nemesises and all that good stuff, but yeah, I could see him having a sore in his side because of her. And if in fact he is not dead and he hasn't been killed off yet, I could see him trying to come after her again. Just because they had that little tango.
I mean, he's a reason. Yeah, she's a reason. Yeah, so.
Yeah, so.
And with that connection with her mom and everything.
Right, exactly. That's what makes it outstanding more than anything. And then, who I would say is a bigger adversary when it comes to the books, at least, is Giulietta Nefaria, or Whitney Frost, known as Madame Mask. And so not to dive too deep into her, because in all honesty, we could probably do an episode on her as well, but we have talked about this character in our Peggy Carter episode. But in the comics, she and Kate has crossed paths while trying to save Clint during an Operation God Sideways. So in a nutshell, what had happened was that there was this fake simulation video of Clint assassinating a person of power. Uh-huh. And it was actually a cover-up for the Navy SEALs who'd carried out the mission themselves. Wow. Kate intervenes and even impersonates Madame Mask to retrieve the tape. And the hijinks just escalate from there. Including a clone. There's this thing with a clone, and again, more clones. There's send in the clones. But they do have many. They tangle quite a bit, at least in the modern books, maybe the 2010s upward. Whereas in the MCU, Whitney Frost, Madame Mask, made her appearance in the Agent Carter series, portrayed by Wynne Everett in season 2, Ivy George when she's young, as well as Olivia Welch as a teen. We discussed Whitney in episode 22 of the show. There's no modern interpretation of that character, so whether or not we'll see one, that's clearly in the 50s, the 40s even. Yeah. So whether or not we'll see like a quote unquote modern day version of Madame Mask, who knows? You certainly don't have to, but it would be pretty cool to. But yeah, who knows? Agent Carter took place in 1946. Can you imagine if they did like a 2024 version of Madame Mask?
I can't even imagine.
She's kind of crazy. She has like this white and black bodysuit, black hair, and like a gold mask.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, you watch Squid Games, right?
Yes.
You know how they wear those like weird
yeah.
masks?
Yeah,
It's almost like that.
Oh, wow.
It's just the blank expression of a mask. Anyway, but yeah, so who knows? Like with things like Thunderbolts coming out.
Like we said, anything is possible at this point, and they can introduce whoever they want.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so all that said, sadly, at the end of the day, Derek Bishop is often attributed to being her biggest arch nemesis.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really sad. But honorable mentions for characters Eden Vale, Doctor Doom, a character named Mother, as well as, here's the biggie, Kang the Conqueror.
Wow.
Who, by the way, the Young Avengers themselves took on many times.
How many times did they lose?
They didn't.
Oh, love that.
Yes, because Nathaniel Richards, Iron Lad himself,
Yeah.
is a younger alternate version of Kang.
He's a variant?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
All right.
So he comes back. Like there's the if you read the run of Young Avengers, the first run, the whole thing is basically that Nathaniel is embedded with the information and has the experience that his future self is going to destroy everything. And so another version of him says, this is what's going to happen. You have to go back in time or go to another alternate universe and stop this before we do this.
That's interesting.
It's a very interesting thing. So I'm very curious.
This next saga is going to be so confusing.
It's going to be so wild. It's going to be all over. It's all over the place. It's going to be all over the place.
I'm already confused.
So they have to be very careful with what they choose to pull in.
And what universes that you're pulling from.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
You just hope that your audience can
follow along.
Yeah.
Because people already have problems doing that now. You know,
people were so mad before we got too off tangent, but people are already mad at Multiverse of Madness. They're like, they showed that small where the different multiverses, and then everyone was like, why did they stay in why did they just go to one other multiverse?
Yeah,
and it's just like why, it's called multiverse. I was like, okay, do that. See what happens, to the audience. You're gonna be like, wait,
where are they?
What's this? I'm like, where's the story? What's the story about again? And you're like, okay, now you're like, okay,
exactly.
So
yeah, I don't know. We may see a few iterations of Kang.
we already have technically.
Yeah, we've already seen 2. We were probably gonna see 4 more.
The one's already died.
Yeah, we're gonna see many more, and so yeah, Nathaniel Richards is also one of them. But yeah, they take him down. They're able to take him down and hold their own.
Crazy.
Of course, when it comes to the MCU, we'll be further introduced to this character in Ant-Man in 1 month.
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So we'll see if we get any glimpse of Kate Bishop in there, but I doubt it. We'll see what transpires in the next couple of years, I guess, with this next phase. But something less complicated, or maybe twice as much, love interests. So I just wanted to nip it in the bud, and we mentioned this in the Clint episode. Yes, Kate and Clint have had some awkward moments in the books. But thankfully, the line is never crossed.
Thank God.
Yeah, they've had some strange dialogue or narration where Kate's almost disappointed that Clint isn't interested in her, or that she's not appealing enough. Yes. Yeah, but it's very, very, very subtle, very quick. They don't revisit it. They just get it out of there. Get it off of people's minds.
Yeah.
But otherwise, as we mentioned in episode 44 with America Chavez, we briefly mentioned, the two are besties, but they have flirted back and forth.
Woo!
Lots of fans wish that this would transpire over to MCU, but the age difference does say a lot about it. So probably unlikely. But America has a girlfriend in the comics, so doubtful we'll see that in the comics officially, at least. But of course, shout out to our America Chavez, portrayed by Xochitl Gomez.
Woo!
First and last seen in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, speaking of. But yeah, otherwise no romantic interest. But people do love that Yelena-like chemistry.
Yeah. They could be besties.
They could be besties. Then in the comics, believe it or not, there is Tommy Shepard, also known as Tommy Maximoff. or Tommy Vision.
Oh, yes.
In the MCU. In the comics, he's more or less of a distraction. So basically, he becomes the rebound boy. After her failed attempt with Eli, Kate kind of cartwheels over to Tommy and is like, I can do this. Yeah, it's kind of messed up.
Wow.
I know. But in the MCU, Tommy portrayed first by Gavin Borders and then Jet Klein in the MCU. First seen in WandaVision, last seen in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Definitely not happening unless they age up the kids.
Unless we see him way into the future.
Way into the future, alternate version, what have you. Because technically they're still lost.
Somewhere. Or they still exist. I mean, they do exist.
They do, just not in
Not
Prime.
in 616.
Right. So, we'll see. We'll see if anything happens there.
Yeah.
And so there's Navarre, Marvel Boy, who we've mentioned a couple of times. He once took on the mantle of Captain Marvel in the books, among other monikers such as Protector, but more or less has been known as Marvel Boy. He still is. The kid has a number of incredible abilities, including nanoactive properties in his saliva.
Ill?
Yeah, he's really powerful.
Gross.
Yeah, he's one of the, and last but not least, important enough, he's one of the bisexual icons of the comics. And so he's now dating Hercules. And both of them are members of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's so weird now that knowing the information I know in the MCU, because Hercules has been introduced.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah.
He's a god. He can do whatever he wants.
Nice.
And of course, Navarre has no MCU counterpart just yet. So nothing to compare to. But one we can is Elijah Eli Bradley, a.k.a. Patriot, who is seen in the comic books wearing what resembles a Captain America suit.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, it is Bucky Barnes's.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Okay, so this is where things are going to start to connect for you.
The plot thickens.
So, in the comics, Eli and Kate skirted the line of being more than friends, but like I mentioned before, she cold turkey friend zones him on a date.
R.I.P.
Yeah, and after they have this encounter with Ronan, Eli wakes up. He's knocked out basically by Clint, and he wakes up and Kate's like, it's okay, and treats him very much like a friend. And he gets frustrated and he's like, I didn't wear cologne and I'm not wearing a tie to be out with a friend. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. And it just doesn't work out. But, despite trying to kind of, sway away from complicating things, she does give in eventually and they date a little bit or have a relationship of some sort. But yeah, at one point, I believe it's that Patriot stole Bucky Barnes's outfit from the archives.
Oh.
And that's what he's inspired by, Captain America's young apprentice to become a superhero, and that's how his contribution to the Young Avengers comes about. But in the MCU, Eli does exist already. Mm-hmm. He is Elijah Bradley, portrayed by Elijah Richardson, first and last seen in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he is the grandson of Isaiah Bradley.
Wow.
One of the original super soldiers.
A lot of these characters.
Yeah, it's kind of wild when you think about it.
Yeah.
And so that's why his presence as Isaiah's grandson in the episodes that he did appear in was such it really set things up subtly for people who were the least bit familiar, because they're like, oh, that's when, oh my gosh, the Young Avengers was really starting to pick up speed.
Yeah.
Because by that point, people were like, okay, so there's already a Kate, there's definitely Tommy, and there's a Billy, and we're going to see America Chavez, and there's a Ms. Marvel too, and there's Miles Morales somewhere.
Yeah.
There's Cassie, and now there's an Eli Bradley. Like,
Like, what are we really doing here, Kevin?
Kevin. So not too much known about Elijah Bradley in the MCU, and the two haven't crossed paths yet. So when and where? But
we
he
shall
could be
see.
he could be Patriot. Whether or not he'll have Bucky's original outfit, I mean, who knows?
Oh, and there's also New Falcon.
A new Falcon.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. They have all these different trails that they can take on. you know, so we'll see where they all intersect. But aside Elijah in the books, Kate also dated a guy named Johnny Watts, aka Fuse. Not to be confused with John Watts, director of Tom Holland's Spider-Man films. Johnny, we briefly mentioned him in our America episode. And so America is dating a woman named Ramon Watts, and Johnny is actually her brother.
Oh.
So yeah, they have the Wakandan origins. Their mother was part of the Dora Milaje. Johnny himself was once a member of the West Coast Avengers, and he currently helps Kate with Hawkeye investigations. And I believe his powers are electrical. That's why his name is
What?
You know how the Marvel do.
So
Yeah. And so no MCU counterpart just yet. But again, who knows? And so when it comes to other versions and other media, we could probably talk a lot about this, but keep it short. My personal favorite version of Kate, aside Haley Steinfeld, is the one featured in the Marvel's Avengers video game.
The Square Enix one?
Yes.
The one that just came out a couple years ago?
Yeah, the one that everybody hates.
Yes. I didn't want to say it.
Yeah, I know, sadly. I know. Oh, God. But yeah, that version of Kate is also very similar to the comic book version. At least her attitude and her swag, she's very, very similar. And she's voiced by Ashley Birch in the game, and I absolutely love her. Her tactical skills and her skill set in general, her fighting style, it's so cool.
Yeah.
She's got some of the best lines. And yeah, very much like a fraction lifted off the page. She's got this, like I mentioned earlier, some of the same outfits too. And then, for those who don't know, she's also, Kate herself is featured in the Marvel's Wastelanders podcast, where she's portrayed or voiced by Tracy Toms, who is a very famous actress, and I believe she's been on Broadway as well. That'll be a familiar name for some people. And she's fantastic. I haven't heard that show. I've heard bits and pieces of it, but not...
I haven't either.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it all the way through. And of course, that's like the post-apocalyptic Avengers story where they're older and such. So
Got it.
Yeah, so it's like that. But yeah, so she also exists in that alternate universe, if you will. And so that brings us to the, we're heading down to the descent of the show, but the future of the character in the MCU. So we last left Kate at the Barton family farm, where she was thinking of names for herself that didn't include Hawkingbird. Geoffrey shakes his head. Love you, buddy. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think is next for Kate?
If she's at the Barton farm, it's like where do you go? I mean, either we see her again.
So you think she's staying at the farm? You don't think that's just a holiday visit and she goes back home?
Where would she go home to?
Oh yeah, her apartment's a flom.
Yeah, she's not gonna go back to her mom's place because that's a walking criminal.
Yeah.
I think she stays there.
Yeah?
I think so.
And where are they again? Do we remember?
No, it's that
undisclosed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe she makes an appearance, maybe in Echo. Maybe.
Slimmest chance.
Super.
Yeah, I don't.
But other than that, and this is how it is. Like when there's no long-term Marvel contracts anymore. It's kind of like, well, I guess whenever you're available and what Lord Feige wants to do next.
Do you think, very quick segue, tangent, do you think that they write A and Bs where they're like, okay, if this person is available, we go this way?
100%.
They do.
There's definitely an A, B, C. And it's like, okay, and then you know, because they switch the dates, the release dates all the time.
Yeah.
So you know, you just take it like whatever they announce with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
My next guess is it's gotta be Secret Wars.
Wow. And that's when?
25.
You really think we won't see her for 2 more years?
I mean, cameos probably.
Wow.
I don't know if we'll get like an actual stat, but
Yeah.
I just don't know where
Where she
could
in.
where she would at least spend like 10-20 minutes on screen where we get to fully develop.
Can I pitch you an idea?
Go ahead.
What if we see her in 1 month and she's one of Cassie Lang's friends?
I mean, I would love to see the backstory.
Yeah. But there is also a secondary option. What if she has a cameo in Thunderbolts?
Also possible.
Because of Yelena.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's going to be so much happening in Thunderbolts that it'd be like...
They don't have room for her.
Like...
Yeah. The Thunderbolts themselves are already like 6 strong.
Like I said, I don't know. Like we'll never...
it's tough. It's tough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. I know. I think we're going to see more of America than we will Kate. And then the next time we see Kate, we're going to get full on...
It's got to be grounded.
All the way
Like it's
up,
got to be
everybody.
ground level
Yeah.
because she's a ground level superhero.
Yeah.
So it's like Spider-Man. Like all he knows is saving people on New York on the ground level. So to expose that type of hero to something multiversal or cosmic, it's like holy crap. You know, it's a new thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only person that can guide her through that is Clint.
Is Clint.
Because he's been to space.
That's true. Gosh, yeah. Fully agreed.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Almost Was, there was absolutely nobody.
That's right. My
There's
baby girl Haley, the only one.
Exactly. There's nothing to discuss here. Pretty much nothing, because Lord Feige himself said that Haley was the prototype for this character.
And
in
you
the
just hope to
MCU.
God she said yes.
Yeah, quite literally. That is quite literally. He was just like, so,
Do you want to do it?
do you want to do it? And then she was like, yeah. And that was it. That's the end of the story. So yeah, they were super duper lucky to get her to play the role. But I will say I did find some fan castings. So these weren't even options, but these are fan castings.
Interesting.
Fan castings themselves included Haley's Dickinson co-star Ella Hunt. Oh, she's so beautiful. I love her. I love her a lot. I would like to see her in the MCU regardless. But also Arden Cho, who's also a great candidate. Lana Condor, who is Fox versus Jubilee. Thomasin McKenzie from Jojo Rabbit. Maya Hawke, believe it or not.
Wow.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Catherine Langford, who inevitably played adult Morgan Stark in Endgame. Yeah. Caitlin Dever, who was my choice for Ellie for The Last of Us.
Oh.
And like previously mentioned, Aubrey Plaza.
Wow.
Yeah. So those are fan castings. But yeah. Geoffrey's top tier wife got the role.
I mean, if it wasn't for that, I probably would not have paid attention to
Really?
Haley Steinfeld. Like, damn, I would
I
have.
thought you were gonna say the series.
No, not the series, not the series. I would have watched it regardless.
Okay,
but it's if it wasn't for the series, I wouldn't have paid attention to Haley.
Yeah.
As much as I do now.
Yeah.
Is that weird to say?
No, not at all.
Because
not at
her
all.
song is banging, man. It's so catchy.
Oh my
Sam's so annoyed at me sometimes when I be singing that because I just be singing it. Baby, all I wanna do is coast with you. Feel the wind.
He's dancing
with you.
so good.
But yeah, if it wasn't for the Hawkeye series, I probably wouldn't, be as obsessed as I am with Haley Steinfeld.
Oh, I completely agree with that because it's same goes for me and like Florence, for instance. Like I like Florence. I like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Her as Yelena is what hit me the most.
And I think that's why I love the MCU. I know a lot of people will always say like, oh, like they were big before. And it's like, yeah, they probably were. I just wasn't exposed to them in that form of media.
Exactly.
But then that's why I like
Backtracked.
the MCU where it's just like, oh, this person was so good in this role.
Yep.
what have they done before? Because now I'm just like, oh, I'm upset. Like, oh, they were in this?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like, what?
Exactly.
What?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So no shame. No shame in that game.
Oh, yeah.
Suggested reading. How about some suggested reading? There's a couple of titles here. So I'll try and breeze right through these, but I suggest both the 2005 and 2013 runs of Young Avengers from Alan Heinberg, Jim Chung, John Dell, and Justin Ponser, as well as Kieran Gillen, Jamie McKelvey, Mike Norton, and Matt Wilson. I wanted to mention that at the end of each comic, there's the letters to the editor, right? And for every title, it's different. It's a different title. It's always something cleverly punny. And so for Young Avengers themselves, do you want to give a stab at what you think theirs is?
Go for it.
Young Avengers, S'assemble. Yep. I didn't write it.
Why?
S'assemble. Because they're sassy. So funny. It's that's a 2013 one, and that one's
That makes sense.
That's the one where the Instagram
Yes.
comes from. Yeah, so it's pretty funny. 2018's West Coast Avengers from Kelly Thompson, Stefani Caselli, and Triona Farrell. That one's a fun series. It features a team lineup that we mentioned in the America Chavez episode that includes both Hawkeyes as well as America, Quentin Quire, Fuse, Gwenpool, and Jeff the Land Shark, as well as many land sharks, with various cameos from like Tigra, a character named Brodok.
Is that the brother of MODOK?
No. He is MODOK if he was a
Bro. Jeez.
but not the kind of bro that we might think of, but like he is like, can I say douchey bro? So he's like blonde. I think he's blonde hair or dirty blonde hair. He wears wife beaters and jeans.
That's
and
hilarious.
He's muscular, and he's like doesn't know anything worth of an ounce of value.
That's hilarious.
My favorite bit from that entire thing is that, like MODOK, you know how MODOK himself is a giant head with like limbs?
Yes.
Brodok, at first glance, he looks like a normal character. But then they even mention, I think Gwenpool says it. Somebody says it in the books. They're like, hey, did you notice that his head is like bigger than the rest of his body? So his head is like irrationally larger than it's supposed to be. It's so stupid, but it's so good. But Jeff the Land Shark. And then there's also 2021's HAWKEYE, Kate Bishop, from Marieke Nijkamp, Enid Balam, Oren Jr., and Brittany Peer. And so that title chronicles Kate's adventures as a PI and includes what I believe is the most, if not the only, issues with her sister's major appearances aside the Young Avengers issue that she's introduced with, The Wedding. And then, last but not least, this is a no-brainer, 2012's infamous HAWKEYE series from Matt Fraction, David Aja, and Matt Hollingsworth, which is what the series itself was largely based off of, though lest we forget, Ultimate HAWKEYE is the one adapted for the MCU. And the series is iconic. Enough said. So, that all said, that is the end of the show.
Oof. Our girl, Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop.
I don't know about you. I just want mac and cheese now.
Oh, I know.
So
sounds great.
yeah. Some sriracha.
Oh,
yes.
gosh.
So yeah, thanks for listening.
Woo!
Next episode. So again, like we mentioned at the top of the show, to ensure we stay on track for release schedule, we're going to be doing a double doozy next time you hear us next round. So we're going to have a character study that'll release in 2 weeks after this episode, and then 2 weeks after that character study, we're going to have a mini Marvel for you.
Woo!
So yeah, suggestions, questions, etc.
Who do you guys want to hear?
Holla at us. Some options that we're thinking of right now or considering for the next episode are, I don't know, Ant-Man.
Surprisingly, which we haven't done.
Yeah.
I thought we have.
Yeah, from what is kind of like a junior OG.
Yes.
As well as The Wasp, maybe even Cassie Lang, but considering
see.
Quantum Mania and all,
Yeah.
we might want to wait. But yeah, so send us some of your thoughts. We Are Groot salute once again to new patron Eve. Thank you again, as well as Jenny, Ariel, Andrew, Nats, Andrea, Claire, Ed, Ashley, the Arachnerd, Joliz, Katie, Melanie, Laura, Tyler, and Robin. Follow us on social at STRKCNTRST. And if you like what you hear, review, rate, and subscribe.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys so much. We have a lot. We have like a couple, it's the start of a new year. Thanks for sticking by us has it been 2 years?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
We had 2 years in
Crazy.
April. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we have some cool things
Cool
we have
stuff.
planned
Yeah,
for this year.
For sure. We're just
So stay
we're-
tuned for that, and thank you for
Exactly.
always continuing to support us. Like, we have so much fun doing this.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we haven't missed a release date yet at all and refuse to.
Yes,
even
exactly.
even with me gonna be gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I refuse to.
Yeah.
Like-
No, we're going to do it, baby.
Yeah.
We got this. We
So,
got this.
Thank you guys again.
Thank
and
you.
we will catch you in the next one.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
What are we doing? I mean, it's Christmas Eve. Let's grab a drink, huh? Okay. Yeah. Cool. Sure. After I get Barton. No, that's not what. Come on, listen. You don't.